Okay.
So my graphics interactive evaluation report. I'm going to be evaluating the development of my interactive design, the product's strengths and weaknesses, and an overall conclusion of the entire design. Throughout, I'll make references towards changes that I could have made or I would like to make in the future. The main concept I took away from the meeting with the client was reflecting on joy. They wanted the idea to have a simplistic look. I took that away, and I think I changed the concept of what they meant. My concept was to have a design that was clean cut, very graphic, lots of space. I think I could have looked more at the navigation, the simplistic of the navigation within my design. The client also wanted to connect different generations into the final product, as they have a wide variety of audience anyway, as they have after school visits, but they wanted to attract a new audience. Actually communicating with the client was actually a great experience. I also used industry methods of asking them key questions and taking notes. Overall, I felt the client's requirements or needs were very loose. So when I took away my ideas, I found it hard to kind of pinpoint a specific area or theme. I kind of had so many ideas that when I combined it together, it kind of went a bit hectic. My initial idea first visiting Novium was, what really stood out to me were the games. They were colourful, kind of highlighted joy. They combined communities, families, friends. But my idea I took away from that, I didn't really reflect the games that were displayed. I kind of took away games more that the audience know today, so they can connect with it more. So connect for battleships. My primary research, I explored different interactive designs. So the first one was the actual Novium. It was very informational based, kind of just flicked through, didn't have much contrast from what they already display. The Google Lab, it was more shapes, colours, kind of interactive and fun. But this design from the Tate Gallery was my main kind of inspiration and influence. I kind of wanted to create a fun factor, kind of talk to the audience. Unfortunately, my kind of final design kind of went away from that. It was due to the change of software programs. I kind of hit a hurdle in Flash where I was running out of time and I couldn't go any further, or I would just go past the deadline and get cut. So I decided to use Encore, which is more simplistic than Flash, kind of basic buttons. You can't really get as much movement unless you use like a video file or something like that. So if I had to carry on, I would definitely take this idea from the Tate Gallery and use it as maybe having a character, telling a story. And also, I felt I could have visited more museums to get a better experience of the different type of interactive designs. Secondary research, exploring here are 3 different styles of interaction. So you've got more the design base with kind of a funky kind of movement, where it's more educational for kids, kind of exploring more pictures, images, and kind of a historic, informational based interaction. Combining all of these, I felt, taking away the ideas, I kind of liked the first design, which I reflected in my final design, where I had the dice as the main focus, and then information will come around it or change the pages. That was my initial idea and what I really wanted to create, because I kind of like the different sections and kind of you can interact with the different areas of that one game if I had to do it. Initial planning, I kind of had this idea of developing around the dice, or the dice moving across the page to get the audience interested. I did a mock-up idea where I looked at different colours, but it was a bit, for my personal taste, and I think it would have attracted not a wider audience. I didn't really like kind of just 2D shapes, kind of didn't really appeal. The initial planning was in Flash. That was kind of a mock-up idea of how I used kind of photographs in a 3D sense to give more depth to the page. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to create this design, but I liked, because the text would have moved when you clicked on buttons, which I thought there was more interaction upon the page, which unfortunately didn't happen. My lack of constraints within Flash as well kind of personally affected my design. Existing programs or products, I looked at online gaming sites. So I used Connect for my actual design. I wanted to move away from the 2D designs, kind of flat base, kind of just graphic. So I decided to photograph to get more depth to the actual page and don't look just so flat and just kind of like, oh, it's just a picture. But with these sites, I realised that you don't want to make it too complicated for the audience to, so simple buttons, backward, forwards. With these designs as well, I felt there's no kind of personality or personal touch, so I wanted to have a kind of connect with the audience more. Ethical issues with my design. I felt in the end I wanted my design to be more about the game, but it ended up being more informational about the game. So this kind of puts constraints against people that have learning difficulties, for instance, who are not able to actually or find it difficult to read or actually function or keep concentration upon the page, because the only focus was the actual words. Navigation. Within my development research, I did 2 types of what not to do and what to do for different navigational sites. So I took, this was actually crowded and you actually would not be able to look where you want to click. With this design, it's very spacious. You can obviously see where to click. There might be issues with the size of the actual text because it would really strain your eyes to see. I took in the kind of idea of having lots of space within my design, so that people can clearly see what the actual buttons they're pressing. Testing, or mock-ups. I wish I had done more mock-ups within actual Flash. I think that would have progressed my kind of learning the skills, and it wouldn't have stopped me halfway or actually near the actual deadline. These were created in Photoshop just to get a basic layout. So I think Flash, if I had created the kind of layout in Flash and kind of explored the different navigational buttons, that would have helped me with creating my final piece. The pitch to the Novium, it was quite late in the game, but I found it quite helpful because I pitched my kind of a basic idea of what my design wanted to look like, and the feedback I got was quite positive, but they noticed that it was really hard to read the text against the grey background, so I obviously changed that in my later on design. This was also a helpful experience with working with the client, and it built up my confidence in pitching ideas. Client feedback, they also wanted more colour because that basic was just the kind of grey images. But obviously as I moved on, the actual games I used, the images of the games I used had more colour and actually kind of draw the attention of the audience. My final product, there was a combination, I think, because I had to change late in the game, I kind of panicked and I just wanted to meet the deadline and kind of have a workable site for the client. So the strengths, I feel, I captured a personal design. So I kind of did a personal games that I felt the audience would enjoy and what I personally played and remembered from my childhood. It also links back to the topic of what the Novium displayed, not exactly objects within the display. That could have actually maybe linked it more to their exhibit. Some of the weaknesses within my design, I felt I lost the concept of my idea, so kind of the concept of fun and games. So there was basically a picture that, okay, it's games, obviously, so it didn't kind of, I visualised, I had higher expectations of what I visualised than what I actually created. So I wanted more interaction with buttons and kind of get the feel of how the game actually worked, not reading it to tell you how it worked. I felt this could have been helped if I kept more to the production schedule. I kind of went away and I focused more on the actual research development of mine. So I kind of researched all this different kind of the use of typography, the use of different websites, but it kind of pushed back my actual creating the final product. Feedback from the audience, from the actual private viewing, they had obviously issues with navigation because my dice, it had 5 faces, but only 4 of them were actual buttons. So they were trying to click on the actual face over here, but it obviously wasn't a page. So that was difficulties that kind of, I think they were expecting more. Also the home button, they obviously thought, oh, home, but they wanted to be back, so you go back instead of postpone like the front, like the basic page. That was like a confusion towards them, which I felt I understand because that was a mistake on my part. In an overall conclusion, I felt that my product was fit for purpose because it met the deadline. It obviously worked. It did what it said in the box. Like it just went through different pages. Obviously, I would have liked to extended it in Flash. I think my lack of knowledge of the program kind of stopped me from taking my idea further and meeting my own expectations of what I wanted to create. Also, I wish I had created more mock-ups and tested it earlier on. I found this this workflow chart, and I think if I had gone by this from the beginning, it kind of talks you through kind of always checking, always kind of testing, making sure that it actually, like, you know what you're doing. Also, I feel if I had chosen a secure concept from the beginning, the more research I created wouldn't have affected what I wanted to add. So I wanted to add too much to a design, which overcomplicated it in the end, which obviously ended up me creating an encore where it was very simplistic, but it didn't really explore the games how I wanted it to. And I feel that kind of took away, I think it took away the kind of attractiveness towards younger audiences. I feel information based, I don't really want to read. So, yeah. However, I think the client feedback was overall pleased and happy with the design and all of the designs, which was a good result.
Very interesting.
In terms of that kind of extra emotion and, fun functionality you wanted to get from Flash, what kind of things did you want aside from what you mentioned of like text moving in?
I obviously had more interaction with buttons, so you could press the button and either text would move in, and a counter would drop from the top into the actual game, and I feel that would give more the feel of how the game actually worked, instead of just having an image and people having maybe not even the younger audience who maybe haven't experienced playing Connect 4 or Battleships, like they wouldn't have that same understanding.
Oh, I've got loads of questions that'll take us till past. No, I'm sure. I'm sure we can wrap up on time. The idea of further interaction.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one of your real strengths is your visual quality, and you were saying you've had some difficulties with coding and understanding the parameters of those kind of things.
Yeah.
And in a way, it didn't need a click for a thing to drop down. It could have just been animated.
Yeah.
As while you were reading, suddenly it drops down. You're like, whoa! A little bit of nice surprise element. It's like David putting in the little party popper in that scene. You're not expecting it, but it's that kind of thing. Or words and typography could have suggested.
I think I just panicked and I was just like, I just want to get a working product that actually, I don't want to disappoint the client and come up with nothing that was half finished, or I just panicked and was just like.
Well, I do think a compromise in there would have been some nice animation of
Yeah,
typography,
definitely.
and I think those were kind of achievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure I had another question. It's just disappeared from my mind. I'm going to put it onto the floor though. Areas of the production process that you really feel you could have focused on more?
I would have liked to have done kind of more mock-up ideas in Flash and kind of more concept ideas, so have the final layer but do it as a mock-up instead of just creating the kind of the layout in Photoshop and not actually experiencing or practicing the skills within Flash. I think that would have helped me within my final design.
It seems like you're kind of designing a whole concept for a whole site without 100% knowing how to make it work.
Yeah.
Instead of maybe going through a design development process where you go, right, here's an idea, I might roll it out across the whole site, I'm not sure how, but here's an idea that I think will work, give it a go, no, or yeah, that's got potential, and then roll out and extend.
I think that would have helped with the process of actually developing the final design, because I would have put all them different skills together and used it, where I was kind of...
You have mock-ups of interfaces, and you've got, as a visual person, you're quite interested in that. You know, graphically, it's like people do book covers and book designs, and you know that's one thing, and that's kind of it. Whereas I think maybe others focused on a storyboard element of it, a creative writing script element of it. I think that would be good in future to know what's going to happen on each of these.
Yeah, like the piece within the Tate Gallery by the Surrealist piece kind of told a story, which would have been better, as you said, like the Novi already have information, you can look up online what a game actually does. Kind of want more of a story. I think that would have benefited more in the design.
And there's some, I mean, you've already kind of mentioned it, there's some kids that would never have played those games, you know, Connect,
Connect
you know.
4,
Exactly.
Oh, Battleships,
But I have.
Yeah.
And I'd kind of like to know a little bit about games I don't know about, like historically. That's kind of why I go to a museum.
Yeah.
And there's your opportunity to engage that little bit of wider audience. Oh, I'm sure you could have told me information about backgammon that I've never known before.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about more of a local area, you know, were there games historically, I'm sure over the last 1,000 years that there must be some quite interesting games that were like played a lot by Romans, seeing as it's the Novium. Just kind of going back to a research level of things. But really interesting evaluation. Thank you very much.